Oh, hey there. So maybe you went past the church this past Christmas and were like looking at the nativity scene out in front of the the church itself, and you saw Jesus there, in his like little like burrito thing, and then you got Mary probably sitting right next to him. Joseph's kind of standing over the two of them, and then there's some guys that maybe look like shepherds. They got the little canes and stuff like that, so they can wrangle in them sheep, and some like barnyard animals and stuff like that. Well, there's usually three other dudes standing there, and they don't necessarily look like they belong there. Uh, Maybe they look like kings or like royalty or maybe some like Arab traders or something like that, but they don't necessarily look like they belong in like the barnyard area, nor do they like look like they belong in like a just in the whole scene and all together. To be honest, like it just looks kind of funny that these dudes are just standing there that look like they have like crowns or something like that on, these weird turbans or whatever, and they're probably holding something kind of weird like a vase or something like that. Like, why would you bring a vase to a baby shower? Like, I don't know. And so there's these guys are called the Magi, and it's kind of not understood where they come from. To be honest, the Bible is it gives a decent account for who they are. So let's go to Matthew. It's the first gospel recorded in the Bible, and we're gonna go to Matthew chapter 2. So, and this is what the story of what they have. So after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." Now, when King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. And they responded to him, "In Bethlehem in Judea, for this is what the prophet has written." So the prophet is a guy from like a long time ago. His name's Micah, and Micah basically wrote this like poem type thing, which was like revelation from God. And so it says, "But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people, Israel." So then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go worship him." Now, for the record, Herod's not looking to go worship Jesus. Herod's looking to go murder Jesus because he doesn't want any basically dissension from his throne. So we're Jesus or Herod's like, I'll be all sneaky with these guys and see if they'll come back. Maybe they don't know what's going on in the situation because they're not from Jerusalem. So maybe they'll just come back and be like, "Hey, I'll let you go murk this little baby." So after they heard the king, the Magi, after they heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, so at this point, we're not technically they're not living in this stable where we get this nativity scene. I think we, as the church, want to have them there just because these are other guys that came and saw him while he was a baby. But at this point, maybe Jesus is around 2 or so. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So, so we get this weird sequence in the book of Matthew, and these guys just show up and they are led by a star to go and find Jesus, and they bring basically gifts that are like fit for a king, and they understand that Jesus is supposed to be the king of the Jews. Now, who are these dudes? Like, and how do they know? Because they're not Jewish, so maybe they don't know who, like, this Messiah figure is. The Messiah is supposed to come and be, like, the savior to Israel. And the first century Jews, whenever Jesus is born, would have understood the Messiah to be this guy who's basically born to save Israel from Rome, from whatever oppression they're under. And he comes born in a manger, and Jesus is born in a manger, and he's just a normal, like, to everybody else, he's just a normal baby. So, but like the shepherd, there's an account in the book of Luke where there's these shepherd dudes that show up. So that's why you see the shepherds in the nativity scene. But they show up on like the day that Jesus is born, and this is maybe a couple years after Jesus is born, and so we now have these dudes that just show up. So, and they've been following the star, so maybe it's been a while. Like, maybe they've seen the star and they've just been following it, and so there's kind of a few different reasons why, different theories as to who these dudes are. The first is the Armenian Church and a lot of like the Catholic Church and stuff like that, the Eastern Orthodox churches. So, most of your like more like liturgical kind of churches, they believe that these three guys were just three separate kings. The first king being Melchior, who's the king of Persia, or he's understood to be the king of Persia. Balthazar, who's supposed to be the king of Arabia or Ethiopia, depends on which tradition you follow. And then Gaspar, who's the king of Sheba. We don't really have any commentary or anything like that as to like where they get the names and stuff like that from. It's just like a church tradition. So, but I don't think there's any like real definitive like answer as to like who these three guys are on that end. They may be like if you grew up in a Hispanic church, a lot of times they celebrate Three Kings Day. The other option would be there's a church, there's the Zoroastrians, which is like a whole nother religion, and they lived in Persia, so in Iran, which is to the east of Israel, and maybe they thought that this guy, like, they thought that there were supposed to be prophets after Zoroaster, who's like their like Jesus, I guess, in a sense. And so they show up thinking that Jesus is like the end time prophet for them. And so they followed the star, and they thought that the king of the Jews would be this end time prophet. The last one would be they're most likely Arab royalty, because they bring frankincense and myrrh, which is from the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula. So maybe these guys show up, they understand that maybe they've heard about the Messiah because there is this diaspora of Jews everywhere, and maybe they show up with like gold and royal and like frankincense and myrrh and bring it to Jesus so that he can have it as the king of the Jews.